All right, we're continuing the Chatzar Yosef, take 2, chapter 15. Very important chapter in this book, and it's really going to go into a lot of depth in a lot of fundamental principles in what people like to call the Kabbalah, the mystical aspects of the Torah. Of course, we're going to try to make it as understandable as possible, not to delve too deep, because that would be dangerous, of course. But nevertheless, we start with the story in the Gemara. It's on page 225 over here. In the Gemara, it's page 57a, Nun Zayin Mud Aleph. The Gemara is going through all the different tragedies that happened to the Jewish people around 2,000 years ago, around the destruction of the second Betar Mikdash. And now it's going to talk about the city of Betar. Says the Gemara, because of a shaft of a carriage, a shaft meaning a part of the carriage, of the wagon.
Talking about the axle. The shaft is the axle.
The shaft is the axle, like in the wheel, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, it's not translated as axle, it's translated as shaft. But whatever, a part, I don't know, it could be. A certain part of of a certain wagon, as we'll see. Because of that, says the Gemara, the city of Betar was destroyed. Betar was an amazing, illustrious city, as we'll see. It was customary in Betar, the people of Betar had a custom, says the Gemara, that when a baby boy was born, they would plant a cedar tree, which is a big, thick, strong tree. And when a girl was born, they would plant a tornita tree. That's the language the Gemara uses. Rashi explains this word tornita means a pine tree. Others explain it means an acacia. How do you pronounce it? Acacia? Acacia?
Yeah.
Acacia or acacia? Acacia. Acacia tree. A-C-A-C-I-A. Right? So it's machlokes what kind of tree it was. But this is a smaller, I guess you'd say more feminine tree. And when they would later marry each other, in other words, a boy and a girl from the city grew up, they went out, they connected, they said, we want to get married. Each one of them had a tree when they were born. When they decided to get married, the people of the city would cut down these trees and make a chuppah, a wedding canopy, for the wedding with their branches. Isn't that an amazing, seems very romantic and like amazing kind of thing? But we'll see, it's actually much deeper than that. One day, the Caesar's daughter, the Caesar, of course, is the emperor of Rome. His daughter was passing by there, the city of Betar. And the shaft of her carriage, in which she was riding, broke. Her attendants who were with her chopped down a cedar tree nearby and brought a piece of it to her to replace the broken shaft. What happened? The Jews of the city of Betar came and fell upon them and beat them. How dare you take my tree? The Romans came and said to the Caesar, the Jews have rebelled against you. The Caesar then came against them in war, and war ensued because of that reason. That's the first part of the story. That's section 1. Section 2, we'll go and continue, see what happened with the war, and so on and so forth. But right now, we have to analyze this piece of the Gemara. Let's jump straight into our questions. Sha'ar Chatzar, the gate of the courtyard, as we like to say. Question number 1. First of all, do you guys have any questions? Anything jump out at you? No. Okay. I did the work for you already. Question number 1. What is the depth behind the custom of the people of Betar to plant trees according to the birth of their babies and then use them for building chuppot? It sounds very nice, but was there any meaning behind it? Was there any particular reason? There must have been, of course. So what was it? We want to know more. Let's investigate.
The strength of the trees is completely different.
Between the cedar tree and the pine tree.
Pine is it's evergreen. It's forever young.
So we have to ask why.
Forever young, but strength-wise, cedar tree is much stronger.
So there's a lot of different factors and a lot of different attributes about these trees. As we'll see, it's another thing, as we'll see.
Understand what is it that about these particular trees that they dedicated?
That's correct. Why were they specifically cedar trees planted for the birth of boys and tornita trees for girls? Question number 2, what is the significance of the fact that the incident which led to war involved specifically the daughter of Caesar, Caesar's daughter? Does that matter at all? Was that just coincidence? Why did the attendants who were with her take wood from a cedar tree rather than a tornita tree to replace the broken shaft from the carriage?
Because cedar tree is a stronger hardwood.
Because it's stronger.
Mine is softer, where it can't. You see, when you keep mentioning shaft, it's an axle. They make it very round. They place the wheels on them. And
The axle, for those who don't know, what's an axle? It's a part of the wheel that connects the middle to the outside,
No, it's
or it's the
wheel-
center.
yeah,
What this
center
wheel
of the
goes around.
Correct. So you wear it out if the wood is very, very soft, and pine
I see.
is soft.
So this wonderful gentleman here says the simple answer is because cedar trees are stronger. So it's that one. Okay, we'll see. Question number 3. Why did the inhabitants of the city react so rashly? Is that a word?
Violently, not
Violently. Well, when I put in this word, the computer didn't tell me that this is an incorrect word.
because it's not.
Therefore, it is an
it's
English
your-
word.
it's-
Rashly.
It's your idea, and your idea is why didn't they know they're going against Rome? That's a rash decision.
Sure. So why did they decide to do that? Why did the inhabitants of the city so rashly react so rashly to one cedar tree being taken down by her attendants? Was it worth attacking them for the loss of this one tree? That's our question. So let's jump into the. Before we jump into the Amudei Chatzar, which is the commentaries, let's quickly read note number 3, which is sort of a background, for a little bit of historical context. The destruction of Betar was the last stand of the Bar Kokhba revolt, which is a true historical thing, right, against the Roman overlords, which took place around roughly 60 to 100 years. It says 70 here, but it's actually around 60. Some say it's 150, in that range. After the destruction of the Second Temple, that rebellion against the Romans was led by Shimon Bar Kokhba, who decimated Roman troops with guerrilla warfare.
Who they thought was the Mashiach.
They established a brief Jewish government in Judea, right? And they even minted their own coin. These coins exist. Coins from the time of Bar Kokhba. Rabbi Akiva believed that he was Mashiach, Bar Kokhba, because he had some victories against the Romans. He thought this is it, Roman Emperor Hadrian retaliated with massive military force, obliterating the Jews, shutting down their revolt, and massacring the city of Betar, for good measure.
Famous.
As punishment for their dereliction, which means rebellion, the Romans did not allow the Jews to bury the bodies of their fallen brethren in the city of Betar, a decree that lasted for 3 years, as the Gemara will mention towards the end of this chapter. The ruins of ancient Betar, sometimes spelled different ways with the B-E-I or B-E-T-H, it's believed to be, by some, to be next to the modern village of Batir nowadays, just southwest of Yerushalayim. So there's some controversy what city was it actually, what the ruins are, but nevertheless, it was definitely a real thriving city that was crushed by the Romans because of their rebellious efforts during the time of the Bar Kokhba revolt. Good. Now we're going to the Amudei Chatzar. We're going into the commentary. It says the Maharal the following thing: just as the Roman troop came to take the blessing of multiplicity from the city of Tur Malka. You guys remember Tur Malka? The King's Mountain. That was the previous destruction we spoke about. 2 cities ago. The last thing we spoke about was Kfar Sechania, and before that was Tur Malka. So over there, if you remember, that was chapter 13. Please look up old videos, you'll see where we see 13. We talked about the city of Tur Malka, and we explained according to Maharal that the Romans destroyed that city of Jews in order to take back the blessing of ribuy, of growing, of multiplicity, that the Jews got from their great-great-grandfather Yaakov, Yitzchak Avinu to Yaakov, right? And then the Romans came out of Esav, so they missed out on that blessing. And we explained over there that they were trying to take back that blessing through that war. So too in our Gemara, the daughter of the Caesar came to take a blessing from Betar. That's how the Maharal explains why the Caesar was passing by Betar. She was passing by in order to take the blessing of strength and fortification. That was the bracha that city had. Extra strength and fortification.
That's why they took the cedar tree.
The words ben, which means son, and bat, which means daughter, they both stem from the word binyan, which means a building, says the Maharal. Look at note number 2 on the bottom. The Maharal adds that the word benot, which means daughters, plural daughters, is translated by Onkelos in Aramaic, in the verse Bereshit 6:2, as benat, which is closely related to binyan, which means building. In the spelling of the word bito, which means his daughter, the taf is emphasized with a dagesh, which means it has a dot inside it, and that dagesh replaces a nun. Grammatical. These are grammatical, ideas here. Thus, without it, the word it would spell benato means his building. Benato means his building, that which he built.
Yes, that's what is built.
Okay, so therefore, in the word daughter is bito means his daughter, and the daughter is built out of the father, so it's all related. Why? Because sons and daughters, says the Maral, are the means with which their parents build. If you're a father or a mother, you're building your legacy, you're building your belief system, everything through your children. They are the next brick in your foundation of your life. The symbolism of the custom of the people of Betar is the following. He explains why they planted these trees. They planted cedar trees when they bore sons as a symbol of their stronghold in the land itself. The type of fortification of a type of fortification of their settlement in the land. Cedars are very strong, deep trees, right? When the boys and girls would marry, they made a chuppah out of these planted cedars, so that the general blessing of fortification founded in their city, represented by the trees, would trickle into their individual families. That bracha, so that they would inherit that blessing of fortification. Also, you should know that the Gemara goes through, in a few places, it gives you a list of 10 different types of cedar trees. And one of those is a tornita. So this tornita tree that the Gemara mentions that they would plant for girls is sort of a sub-family, sub-category of cedar trees.
So it means pine.
Rashi says it's a pine tree, but it's
Definitely not a cedar.
I know, but the Gemara goes through a list in three different places in the Gemara. The word erez. Erez means what we translate as a cedar tree, but it's basically a family of types of trees. And it gives you a list of 10 different types over there. So without getting into it, we're not botanists over here. We get the idea. Thus, it is only fitting that it was specifically the daughter of Caesar who had come to take the blessings of fortification from Betar. Right? Because you build through the daughters. The word daughter is very close to the word building. And they had the Jewish people in Betar had a blessing of strong building of the strong roots in the land, the fortification. And she was coming to take that blessing. That's the idea. The fact that it was Caesar's daughter rather than his son is even more fitting, because the concept of the daughter is even more representative of the concept of building than a son is. Why is that? Why does a daughter more strongly represent building than a son? Look at note number 4. This is because women are the builders of generations, quite literally, in the sense that the actual physical bodies of the members of the families are built in their wombs. They hold the children for 9 months and give birth, right?
I take it back. It is the family.
There you go. See? The Gemara knows what we're talking about.
Dogwood, pine, redwood.
There you go. Pine is in the same family as cedar. So the Maharal points to a different reason in Nidah 31a, a different Gemara, where the Gemara there expounds the verse 46:15. We could get into that's a side point. The Gemara also in Ketubot 17a mentions how at weddings there was a rabbi, Rav Acha. He used to lift the bride onto his shoulders and dance. Famous Gemara. How could a rabbi, imagine the biggest rabbi generation, goes to a wedding, takes the bride, puts her on his shoulders and starts dancing? Hava, Nagila, Hava.
We're allowed to do that?
You're not allowed to do that. Rav Acha was allowed to do that. Famous Gemara. When the students at the wedding asked him, Rabbi, can we try to? Can we try the same? He replied to them, if she is to you like a korah, like a beam, then yes. If not, no. Which means what he's saying? He's saying, I'm not dancing with the woman on top of me.
He's dancing with this.
It's just a piece of wood. What's the big deal? Difference? I'm holding a log or I'm holding the bride. What's the difference? In his mind, it was equal. You understand? So he was able to just completely. That takes a lot of mind power, brain power. He was telling the students, when you get on my level, then you can do it. Which obviously no one's on that level today. Okay. But what's the idea? But why did I bring this Gemara? Not just to have a good laugh. Why did I bring this Gemara? The Marasha explains there that it is fitting for Rav Acha to have made such a comparison, comparing the bride to a log, piece of wood. Why? Since a beam is used to build buildings. And the woman of the house is upon whom the core of the household is built. She's the foundation of the house. You understand? In fact, a woman is synonymous with the term bayit, house, as it says in Shabbat 118b and Yomah as well.
Bunch of bricks.
Not a bunch of bricks, but the depth of that is she is the. How do we know? The Torah says, "Ish ubeto," a man and his and his house shall rejoice in the holiday. Who's it talking about? Do I have to lift up my house, lift up the door, and start dancing on the holiday? No, it means the bayit means your wife, your house is your wife. She is the one that she's the builder, she's the she's the contractor, she's everything of the house. Without her, you got nothing. She brings the bracha, she holds the bracha in the house. Furthermore, the creation of the first woman is described in Torah with the language of building also. When God built the first woman, it doesn't say He created her. It said, or He formed her. It says He built her. How do we know that? It says, "Vayiven Adonai Elohim et hatzela." When it says when God extracted the tzela from Adam, I'm using the word tzela because it's a machlok what He took it out from him. Everyone famously knows, it's a rib, right? There is one opinion that it's a rib. There's two other opinions in the Gemara that was not a rib that He took from him.
What is it?
Okay, I don't want to get into this. This is going to be a huge sidetrack, but just to whet your palate a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Whet our palate.
So the Gemara Masechet Barachot says two opinions. One, that Adam and Chava, the man and woman that God first created, were attached by the back. There was no back, meaning their faces were facing this way, they were attached, and He separated them. That was what He separated, her actually, and then He closed them up from the back, closed both of them up. Right? And all fits in the verses. The second opinion is that there was a tail. Adam had a tail, and He removed the tail, and from the tail built up the woman. That's why if you look at the spine of a normal developed human being, there's a few, what seems to be a few extra vertebrae by the sacral area of the spine, very low end part of the spine. And anatomic experts will tell you that's one of the vestigial, leftover parts of when we used to be monkeys, some garbage like that. That's the second opinion. The third opinion is brought down by Onkelos, and I believe certain Geonim, if I'm not mistaken, that it was a rib. The tzela means a rib that was removed from him. Tzela actually means a side, the side of something, right? That's why when God describes to Moshe how to build all the parts of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, that would go around them, all the golden pieces, He would call each side a tzela. On each tzela you put a bad. Bad was a pole, the long golden poles that the Leviim would carry them on. The Torah says you put them on the tzela, which means it means a side. So the word rib the rib is kind of like a side of a person, so there's some connection there. One guy, which will remain nameless, who has a lot of I don't want to say crazy, but interesting, for lack of a better term, interesting ideas, novel ideas about Torah, is that he says, the word tzela means a cell. That's his idea. God extracted a stem cell of some sort from Adam and then grew up. I mean, that's sort of a stretch, but that's what he says. Okay, anyway. How did I get there? So when He took this piece out, whatever it was, let's say it was a rib or a tail or whatever it was, it says, the next verse over there that describes how God created the woman was Vayiven, and God built up this tzela to become a woman. The word building is there. There's a famous midrash says, why does it say the word built? It says because that after He finished creating her, He built up her hair in a beautiful way. He braided her hair. He braided her hair to make her beautiful for Adam, for the wedding. That's what the Midrash famously says. Yes. That's what and therefore, we actually, it's amazing because from this Midrash, we learn out a halakha l'maaseh and the laws of Shabbat. One of the 39 melachot that are forbidden to do on Shabbat is building, binyan. And therefore, it's forbidden on the Torah level to braid a girl's hair because that goes under the category of building. Because that's what God did for Chava.
Wow. How many people do that? Not knowing, especially for their kids?
Yeah, can't braid hair on Shabbat. So, okay. But I digress, as I told you I would. Going back over here. This is all based on the Maharasha's idea here that women are builders, and that's why it was the daughter of Caesar who came and tried to steal the blessing of building that the Jews of Betar had. There's another important observation to be made about these three events of the destruction. That of Jerusalem, Turmaka, and Betar. So the Maharal is sort of weaving together a general idea about all the destructions we've been talking about up till now. The destruction of Jerusalem was away in chapter 6, Kamta and Bar Kamta, remember? That was Jerusalem. The destruction of Turmaka we spoke about in chapter 13. And now, 15 over here, we're talking about Betar. The Maharal puts a common denominator about all three of them, and that is that the blessing of multiplicity, of growing, was taken from Turmaka by the Roman Caesar. And the blessing of fortification was taken from Betar by the daughter of Caesar. But nothing, I don't know if it was the same Caesar, there's about 60 years in between, so probably not. But nothing was taken from Jerusalem. The holiness of the city was not taken. Rather, it was just destroyed and lost in the general sense. That's what the Maharal writes. By the way, we're speaking right now as on the day after, technically, because now it's nighttime already, of Yom Yerushalayim. The day of Jerusalem, which is the day in Israel where they commemorate the 67 war, the 6-day war, where they very quickly, Israel regained the territory of the old city of Jerusalem with the western wall there. It's a holiday of sorts for many Israelis. Well, it depends what shul you went to here in New York. Some shuls still say Techanun, but if you're Israeli, for sure you probably did not say Techanun. Yeah. Okay. Going further now. That was the Maharal. Let's just do the Maharsha, maybe the Ben Yehuda, and then actually I want to try to finish it, but we'll see. I know there's a lot here. Maharsha, next commentary. The Tornita tree, which Rashi calls the pine tree, is of the family of cedar trees. Of cedar trees. Yeah. The Gemara gives a list in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, Masechet Ta'anit, about all different types of cedar trees. In Hebrew, it's called a shita, atzei shittim. Right? The Torah talks about this type of wood all the time. This was the wood that was used to build all the furniture of the Mishkan.
Yes.
Right? Look at note number 7. The shita is commonly translated as acacia tree. This seems different than Rashi says it was a pine tree. Okay.
They kept on talking about the wood that they used to carry it on.
The kashim? What?
Yeah, the rods.
Yes.
They used to support.
Yeah. Okay, so perhaps this tree is a female tree, says the Maharsha. What does that mean? It's a female tree. You have male and female trees?
Attributes, yes.
There are such a thing as male and female organs on trees. Some trees have both organs. You know, it's interesting stuff. It's very interesting. You know, the pollen is the seed of the tree, and then it finds the flower. The flower is the female part, and then etc. etc. Different trees work differently. Look at note number 8 over here. We know today that any tree that produces fruit is either hermaphroditic or female, while a strictly male tree produces only pollen. The reason the people of Betar attacked the attendants, says the Maharsha, when they took down the cedar tree, is because they interpreted the act as a threat to decrease the number of sons born in the city, which would result in a decrease in the blessing in the city overall. Just as Paro did in Egypt. As it says, what did Paro say? All the sons that will be born, into the river shall they be sent. So they thought as a threat, you're taking down our cedar trees, you want to take down our boys? There's one of our boys is connected to this tree. You want to take down all the trees? Yeah? War. Look at note number 9. Males are closely tied with the concept of blessing in general, in the deeper wisdom, and we're going to elaborate further on that. The male attribute pulls down blessing, while the female attribute contains it and holds it and allows it to exist and to grow. Yes, the male pours into and influences the female. That's the concept. Blessing is poured from the upper worlds down to the lower. It bears the same male-female dynamic. If you want to hold the blessing here, you have to create a receptacle. You have to become a holy vessel, so the blessing can be poured into you from the upper worlds, and you can hold it. Right? The gematria of zachar, male, is equal to bracha, female. blessing. Okay? Good. That's the Marashah. Let's do the Ben Yehoyada. And then, actually, I'm going to leave the Divrei Shaul for next time because he goes into something deep that we're going to have to, we're going to build on in the Chatzar Yosef a lot. So just do the Ben Yehoyada and call it a day. Says the Ben Yehoyada. It seems that their custom to plant the cedar trees for the birth of boys was to activate a positive omen, a positive sign. Since the word Erez, Aleph Resh Zayin, which means a cedar, has the gematria equal to 4 times that of the word Ben, son. Ben is 52, so Erez must be 4 times 52. Quick math, 208. That's correct. Which hints to the 4 offspring necessary to fulfill the mitzvah of prurvu, be fruitful and multiply. Danny, you should know this. We learned this recently, Baruch Hashem. It's the first mitzvah in the Torah, to be fruitful and multiply. It only applies to men. How do you halachically fulfill this mitzvah? Anybody know? Well, I told you note number 11. A man is required to have at least 1 son and 1 daughter, each of which must be capable of parenting children of their own. And the way you prove that is, he must also have, the father has to have a grandson and a granddaughter, 1 from his son and 1 from his daughter. Which means you have to have a total of 1 son, 1 daughter, 1 grandson, 1 granddaughter. But both of your son and daughter must have had a child. Which means it doesn't matter which one of them has the boy or the grandson or the granddaughter. Understand? Once you fulfill all those 4, you have fulfilled the first mitzvah in the Torah. And guess what? If you have that, you can consider yourself very blessed and lucky, because there's many people, righteous people, who have not been able to fulfill that mitzvah. Either they don't have children of their own, or they don't have grandchildren in the same way.
All boys.
Yeah. They can have all boys, all girls, a lot of different situations. Okay. This is 4. Okay. Going back over here in Ben Yehoyada. So that's why he says it was a cedar tree. Cedar tree is 4 times Ben. Child. 4 times child. The Erez, cedar tree, planted for the male, starts with the letter Aleph, which is the first letter of the Aleph Bet. And the Tornita tree, planted for the female, starts with the letter Taf, which is the last letter of the Aleph Bet. This hinted that the couple should receive the pour down of blessings from Aleph to Taf, A to Z as we say, right? Corresponding to the 22 pipes of blessing. Each pipe for 1 letter of the Aleph Bet. There's 22 letters of the Aleph Bet. The Ben Yehoyada adds that this is why there's a custom to sing Eshet Chayil on Friday nights before Kiddush, since it's composed of the 22 alphabetically ordered verses. Eshet Chayil. You're pulling down the blessing from each letter in the Aleph Bet when you read the Eshet Chayil, which, by the way, are direct verses from the book of Mishlei, I believe. Yes, Mishlei, Proverbs, the very end of the book of Proverbs.
You should not skip it, huh?
It's not an obligation, but it's a very good thing to do, Church. And if you sing it, and if your wife understands the words, and you understand the words, it's even better. On a general note, he says, recollecting on these 3 major tragedies, back to this idea where the Chachamim are trying to connect all these tragedies that we just spoke about, all different cities, the different chapters that we spoke about. Recounted by the Gemara regarding the destruction of Jerusalem, Turmakan, Betar, the Gemara makes a point to show how such tremendous death and destruction was caused by tedious things, if you paid attention. It led to the destruction of Yerushalayim because one guy was embarrassed by another guy.
Seemingly not connected to anything.
Right. Tur Malkah was destroyed. Why? What happened over there, Tur Malkah? You remember? Chicken.
Yeah,
Chicken and a rooster. At a wedding, they took the chickens. The Romans took the chickens. And over here, the attendants took down, it wasn't a wedding, but they took down a tree. Connected, I mean, it wasn't from actual wedding, but it was going to be eventually, that tree was going to be used for a wedding, according to their... Yeah, the chicken was a wedding, yeah. That was a wedding.
That's what I said.
Yes. Okay, so these seem to be tedious things. Jerusalem was destroyed because of Chatzar Yosef, like we just said. Tur Malkah was destroyed because of a rooster and a hen. Betar was destroyed because of the shaft of a carriage. This is because during the time of the Second Temple, Second Bet HaMikdash, which is right around this time, major sins like idolatry immoral relations, and murder were not prevalent. That wasn't the reason why the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. The issues that were prevalent were tedious matters that people would trample their heels upon, not care so much about, not put so much attention on, neglecting to give them their proper level of attention, such as lashon hara, evil speech, and baseless hatred, sinat chinam. This is why the reasons given by the Gemara for these tragedies are seemingly tedious things. Look at door number 16. Of course, the Ben Yehuda is only pointing this out on a very superficial level. In truth, all these events and details surrounding them are dealing with things much more severe than pesky and tedious matters, as we have explored in the previous chapters and in the chapter we're about to explore now. So on the surface, what? It wasn't recording?
Keep going. Keep going.
What happened?
So, everything's okay.
So on the surface, it seems like tedious things, but the depth is that there was a lot more to be uncovered. Okay, Baruch Hashem. So I think we're going to stop here, guys. What do you guys say? You want to go one more? Finish the commentaries? Or no?
Save for next week.
Yeah, I want to save for next week. This is going to be a deep one we have to go into. Okay, so B'ezrat Hashem, next week we're really going to get into the depth, the meat of what I want to uncover. And it's really fundamental ideas. I think the next week's lecture is going to be one of the most important ones we ever did. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen. By the way, hold on. Next week is Shavuot. So it's going to have to be in 2 weeks. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen.